Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Odin's Movie Blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope we're doing well, and today we'll be talking about The Mandalorian, which I haven't talked about officially on a video on the channel for a decent while, but we are now into or past Chapter 5 of the series. Only 3 more episodes left until the season finale, the Season 1 finale, which to me is kind of this mixed bag at this point because I really do still wish the episodes were just a little bit longer. I know that some people might like the fact that the episodes are quick to get through. You know, they tend to keep up the pace. But for me, I tend to like longer, drawn out, very well developed stories. And I feel that there are certain episodes, especially episodes 4 and 5, that just feel kind of out of place. Now, episode 5 is definitely not as bad as episode 4 was, just from a narrative perspective. I really do think that 4, by all leaps and bounds, or by all measures, by all indicators based on the fan reaction, has been the least liked. Now, does that mean it was a bad episode? No, it wasn't a bad episode. It was just an episode that borrowed heavily from films that have done it previously, films like The Seven Samurai and even Three Amigos, and we expect something a little bit more at this point. If this is a series that you get $10 million projected, $10 million per episode, I'm going to expect something a little bit more than what we've been getting so far. So it's one of those things where I'm both happy with the series so far, but I'm also underwhelmed. I think that we had such high expectations for a very long time. Obviously, even with the current state of Star Wars being run by Disney, being run into the ground, it seems, by Disney's Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson and the like, I think that many of us still held so much hope for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and all the people that are involved in The Mandalorian. And especially after episode 3, which was just badass in almost every single way. It was well directed, well written. Everything about it was great. It's just weird that we've had these other episodes that just have not really matched to the success of episode 3. Episode 1 was a standard opening to any show, which is why overall it was fine. It was one of those 8 out of 10s. When you had episode 2 come in, it was just so much shorter, coming in around 27 minutes with, again, $10 million per episode. I feel like they're not getting their money's worth, and I feel that we, even though paying just a very small amount per month, also don't seem to be getting our money's worth either, especially with the way they're doing the seasons where you have to wait every week per episode. I feel that the hype for some of these episodes is so high that to come in under the expectations is something that needs to be criticized or is worthy of being criticized. So episode 2 comes in with that shorter episode and really just not nearly as strong as the first one, coming in with, to me, a 7 out of 10. But then you had episode 3, which was a damn near perfect episode, directed by Deborah Chow. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce the name. It's either Deborah Chow, or Deborah Chow. I'm not exactly sure. Who did an immense job, and really behind the scenes and in the interviews has also done an excellent job, because every single person, it seems, is trying to bring up the fact, oh, let's talk about the fact that you're a woman and that you're Asian, and she's like, no, let's not do that. Let's just talk about that I'm a director and I want to be known as a good director, and that's all I want to. That's the main thing I want to be known for. And kudos to you. That's the reason why many of us in the Phantom Menace and many other people have said episode 3 has been the best so far, and give this woman as much as you possibly can in the future. The fact that she is going to be the showrunner or the main person behind the Obi-Wan Kenobi series makes me very excited for that series, because if she does exactly what she did with episode 3 here, then I would say it's in pretty good hands at this point in time. But then we had episode 4. And episode 4 was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, who, of course, went to social media and tried to make a point of, look at what happens, look at all the strong women involved in the series. And it's like, okay, so not everyone involved with The Mandalorian understands that they're just trying to make a good TV show and not trying to play the identity politics game. Bryce Dallas Howard apparently is a part of that group for some reason. But what is really sad is the fact that that episode was so bad for me, I gave it about a 5 out of 10, and this one didn't really make up for it. If I had to rank this one, I'd probably give this one also a 7 out of 10 as well. So it's not as bad as the first one. It's about pretty much equal to me as that second episode. And the reason why is because there are some really great things to say about this show. I think that Pedro Pascal, as just the voice work that he's doing for The Mandalorian, is worthy of commendation. I think that he is being able to purvey and portray so much emotion just in his voice, just in the inflections, and assuming that he's the one underneath that mask for the most part, other than, of course, the stunts, I think that what he's able to do just with his head tilts and just his body motion, his body language is impressive. For someone that has been such a fan of people like Andy Serkis and his work on creatures like Gollum or Caesar from the Planet of the Apes, recent Planet of the Apes trilogy, I have to give kudos to people that are able to do so much when it's a digital form, or in this case, when it's just the uniform, it's just the outfit itself that you're seeing for the most part. And so there are some great things like that going on. For the most part, the writing has been pretty good. I really hope that we get a little bit more of Gina Carano, because I don't think that she was utilized very well in the last episode, because if you want to really get a good understanding of the kind of quality stuff that she can put on screen, look up a film by Steven Soderbergh called Haywire, where almost every single scene, every scene that she's in where she fights, it's very little cuts, so you see all of the moves as they happen. It's not that quick cut where it's trying to cover up stunt doubles, things like that, because it's actually her fighting. And then also they take out any soundtrack. And so all you hear are just the natural sounds of the fight. I'm sure they've boosted some of those sounds, but it's raw fighting. And she shows that she has that ability to not just fight because she is a fighter in real life, or was a real fighter in real life, but also that she's able to portray that on the screen in a very realistic way. And I don't think they utilized her as nearly as much as they could have in that 4th episode. So kind of going away from that 4th episode and going into now this news story where you have more characters being introduced, it just comes across as every episode we're going to reintroduce the same characters like the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda, but then we're going to introduce brand new characters too, and many of them are just one-off characters, or seem to be one-off characters. And with the episodes only being so long, and with the season only being so long, and the amount of money it costs per episode, meaning that we're not likely going to get season 2 until 2021, most likely, I would imagine, it just makes me in this position where I'm just wondering to myself, why should I really be getting excited for this series? What should keep me watching it? And I know that might be sounding weird at this time, since we haven't seen the end, since obviously there are a lot more things that they can do, especially since Deborah Chow is set to direct the second to last episode. And then you have people like Taika Waititi directing last episode. Jon Favreau is going to be taking over writing once again. Dave Filoni was the one that wrote and directed this past one. I just can't help but feel that certain episodes almost feel disjointed because of these new characters, brand new characters to the Star Wars universe, and not a lot of consistency. I think that the criticism of the show has been, it's very much seems to be like an animated show, where animated shows tend to do that. Like if you look at Clone Wars or Rebels, they would do that too, where they would move on to something else. They'd reintroduce new characters, keep some of the old characters still, the main character still, and then they just continue to go back and forth. And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, especially when you start to look at these episodes and as we get further along. There are still those basic questions that we've been left with from the very beginning. History of the Mandalorian. Obviously, we've gotten the flashbacks. This is the first episode, to my knowledge, that we didn't get some sense of a flashback scene. There could have been another episode that also had it, but to my knowledge, it seems to be one of the first that didn't have any flashbacks by the Mandalorian's character. So we don't know exactly what happened there. We still don't know any idea about Baby Yoda, and then somebody tells me that's going to be the story, or the big question mark that's going to last until the end of this season, potentially maybe even multiple seasons, about who is Baby Yoda, where does he come from, is he a clone, is he actually Yoda as a child, like how does this all, what are they going to try and portray it as? But I don't know, maybe I'm just rambling a little bit, but I think that it's just one of those things where I want to really love this show, because this is by far the best thing that Disney has done. I know. I feel the same way. River, I know, baby. This is really the best thing that they've done since Rebels. And as a fan of Rebels, I'm looking to this and saying, hey, you know what? At least this is pretty well up there. It's pretty spot-on stuff. But it's not nearly as good as it could be. And I think that most people will understand what I'm saying here, where it's really good, and it's solid, and it's by far, by none, the greatest thing that the Lucasfilm brand has been doing since Dave Filoni's Rebels. But is it good enough? Should we simply be satisfied that we're getting good Star Wars, or should we expect great Star Wars? And I think that's really much where I am right now, because yes, we're getting good Star Wars. I love Baby Yoda. I love the character of the Mandalorian. I want to find out more about his character, and the dynamic between him and Baby Yoda is freaking hysterical. But just because it's good, just because I'm generally enjoying it, doesn't necessarily make it great. And this show has the potential for greatness, and it very well could reach that point. We still have a few episodes left for it to reach it, or at least get closer to that point. But I really hope that the episodes no longer are simply, let's introduce random new characters played by recognizable actors, like the woman that played the mechanic in this one. I forget her name, but I recognized her from other things like Kimmy Schmidt and other places too. And I hope that it's able to take on a life of its own and actually feel like a continuation of the story, and not just let's go on random missions every single episode. And instead, we get a little bit more of a standard, I guess you could say, a little bit more of a stable narrative, a little bit more of a stable narrative and a stable story. But those are just my thoughts on The Mandalorian in general. I mean, I know that I focus mostly on episode 5, but I think that I tried to touch a little bit on all the other episodes so far with my ratings of the episodes and why I rank them that way. And I want the show to get going. You know, episode 3, it was like, oh man, things are getting going, things are getting hot, things are going to be awesome, all the action, etc. And now we slow back down, and all I'm wanting is episode 3 again. I'm wanting to have that episode 3 moment again, and we just haven't gotten it yet. So, as I said, we're getting good Star Wars with this series by Jon Favreau. But we're not getting great Star Wars, and we could get great Star Wars. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. If you're watching The Mandalorian, what are your thoughts? Are you kind of like me, where you're liking it, you really do think it's solid, but you think it could just be a little bit better, and you don't want to just settle for the fact that, yeah, this is the greatest Star Wars that we've gotten since 2015, from the beginning of Rebels? Or are you a little bit different than me? Maybe do you think that this show is fantastic, is great? What am I thinking? Or maybe are you one of those persons out there that think the show isn't that good, is overhyped, overrated? I understand where you might come from, because I'm kind of the same mindset, where I think some of us, myself included, are overselling the episodes, overselling the seasons, overselling the season so far, overselling the show, because this is the best thing that we've gotten. We finally have good Star Wars, but we're almost acting as if it's great Star Wars, some of us. And I think that we need to be careful with that, because then it's when we get complacent that we get disappointed, or that they realize, oh, we can just stay at this level and they will be happy. We don't have to go further. We don't have to try and reach greatness. We can go ahead and just take and leave this standard set instead. Anyway, a little bit of your thoughts about that stuff and all the things we talked about in the comments section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, give me a subscribe. It helps me out a lot. You are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful night. And as always, God bless.